Okay, well, good afternoon, evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the special meeting of the IVCSD. Hopefully you were here with us last night when we began a round of interviews. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:01. I'd like to announce that the meeting is being recorded. We do a roll call or attendance when we're all here. We can say all present. Yeah, everyone's present, all present. All right, let's do a land acknowledgement. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place Anaskoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. Next, I'd like to move on to the public comment period. At this time, any member of the public may speak on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Board of Directors that are not on the agenda. The board will not take action on any item not on the agenda except as provided by law. Public comment on Zoom.
Are we lucky?
Let's move on to our discussion action items. So the board will have vacancy interviews with different candidates and discuss as needed. A scheduled interview of questions is attached.
And we have an update, which is we had the 6 p.m. candidate Laura Dewey withdraw. So we're going to move up Scott Ball to 6, and then Ella will meet right after at 6:20.
Okay. I'm just going to set up a timer on my phone right now because I'm not sitting directly next to Jonathan for work last night. Okay.
Yeah, maybe we want to
need to scoot on over so I can have a good view of our candidate. All right. I'd like to welcome Scott Ball to the interview process. I'm going to start your timer now and begin with the questions. Why do you want to join the IVCSD Board of Directors?
Yeah, so I mean, the short answer is that I want to do what I can to help our community succeed, and I think that I have a lot of skills and experience that that would really help the district in that goal. As many, if not all of you may know, I was running for the seat on the Ivy Reckon Park District Board in November, and though I wasn't elected, in the process of running, I learned a lot about how the different districts in Isla Vista function, the different like services that the community services district focuses on versus the parks district, and also the overlap and the interplay between those two. And I also really enjoyed just getting to learn from community members what they thought IV could use and trying to figure out solutions for that. So once this opportunity arose to apply for this vacancy, I was really excited as another opportunity to be involved. And honestly, the CSD is really interesting to me as well as parks, but because the CSD's kind of the issues that the CSD tackles are a bit more broad in nature and have kind of like an added layer of complexity of the CSD trying to accomplish a lot of the functions of like a traditional city council, but within a more limited scope of enumerated powers from the legislature. So there's a lot of, I think, creative solutions that I think the board has already been working towards implementing. And I think that there's more to do there. And it's a unique puzzle. And I think I'm well suited to help contribute to it.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to question number 2. What would you do if you believed you needed more accurate and complete information in order to make a board decision?
Yeah, so this question for me kind of raised 3 different points. The first is that as decision makers, we obviously want our decision makers to be making very informed decisions based on the best information available and possible to have. So that's obviously the first point. If I was a board member and I thought that there was identifiable information that I needed, and that we were able to get, I'd vocalize that and identify what the information was that I thought was needed or would be useful, and then work with board members, staff, to identify where we could get that information, who the most relevant stakeholders were, reach out to them and try to get the information. But the second point that I thought was brought up was that sometimes decision makers need to make decisions and don't always have the luxury of having all the relevant information. And maybe that information doesn't exist yet, or isn't something that can be acquired in time to make decisions. And the most relevant example that I can think of is COVID-19 response. And in those types of situations, as a decision maker, I would do the absolute best that I can with the information that I had. Obviously, seeking out the most relevant and most credentialed information to make those decisions, while also trying to identify what information I was missing and what potential problems could arise from making a decision without that information, so that I could make decisions in a way that helps mitigate potential damage from those problems that could arise from missing information. And then the third point that I thought this was involved with this question was, I think that a lot of situations where more information may be needed could be kind of preemptively addressed through really crafting good, studies, surveys, outreach programs at the beginning stages of the information gathering process, so that we eliminate situations where decision makers need more information and have to delay their decision, which then delays the impact to the community and the benefit that hopefully those decisions is bringing to the community. So basically trying to reduce bottlenecks by engineering good information collection strategies. So.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to question number 3. How would you collect and respond to feedback from Isla Vista community members?
Yeah. So kind of what I was talking about at the end of my last question kind of rolls into this a little bit, but I think that a lot of the tried and true methods are pretty good of surveys, general outreach, email, like emailing lists and surveys that way, social media campaigns, and then encouraging public comment. Obviously, I know that there's a general kind of like lack of engagement, or that we're hoping to find more engagement in these sorts of information gathering campaigns, and especially public comment. And so I think like the most progress can be made in those areas. Like there's the most to be gained by trying to be as creative as we can to reach as many interested stakeholders as possible. And so like I really admire the CSD. I see a lot of publications that are in more languages than just English. So that's reaching a whole nother contingent. And I wonder kind of what other other solutions we can come up with like that. Like if there are mediums that are better for delivering information to certain members of the disabled community, or if we could maybe do more to promote written public comment to the board, and where, when, and how to submit that. Maybe even including just in the as the normal procedures for the board to, like during the public comment period, asking for public comment, including just a little rider of like, hey, also just so you know, like the board considers written public comment, and this is how and when you could provide that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of progress to be made there, and yeah, just working creatively to have the most inclusive collection campaigns as possible.
All right, move on to question number 4. What will success for you in this role look like 1 year from now? In your mind, what kind of things create an experience of success?
Yeah, so success for me would look like the board moving closer to achieving its goals, and expanding some of the programs that already exist, trying to do more with what already exists, with the financing that's available, the funding that's available. So one example that I talked about in my letter of intent was the housing mediation program. So obviously housing is a huge issue in IV, and the board, the district only has the power enumerated to it to establish a housing mediation program. But I talked about potential ways to expand that through encouraging or even requiring negotiation of a provision into leases, requiring landlords and tenants to try to attempt dispute resolution through the housing mediation program before like resorting to litigation or something like that. So that would be a great way to expand the program's reach, and also the community would benefit. Landlords and tenants would both benefit from having a less expensive, obviously, alternative to litigation, and also mediation, if done correctly, tries to resolve disputes through conversation and like more community oriented and less adversarial method than the traditional litigation of the legal system. So trying to expand that program, I think, would be a huge success. Another big success, I think, would be to see improvement in the relationship between the police and IV residents. I hear a lot that there's a lot of people who are not happy with police presence currently in Isla Vista, and yeah, trying to figure out ways that we can make strides in that relationship. So I know the district has the power to supplement the police services already provided by the county and the UC. And I know that in the past we've had the interpersonal violence investigator, and that the district is currently working to replace that person who left. I think that would be a wonderful replacement. I think also in supplementing the services already provided by the county and the UC, we could try to provide or fund the training of unarmed officers who are trained in crisis intervention and de-escalation to be the responders for nonviolent calls. So things that also, I talked about in my letter, like maybe having more community type events to try to bring officers and community members together to foster conversation and hopefully find some trust between the two groups. Just as as kind of an approach towards community policing. So to give officers a better understanding of who the residents and community members are that they are around and here to protect and serve, and so that they have actual investment in the community. And just trying to make strides in that relationship, I think would be a huge success.
All right, we'll move on to the fifth question. Have you attended or watched a board meeting of IVCSD or some other elected body? Was there an issue raised that you felt strongly about? How would you express your stance on this issue? If you were on the board and it came time to cast your vote, what role would community concerns, state, local, and federal laws, the input of staff and board members, and your own values and beliefs have in determining your vote?
Yeah, so I have attended virtually multiple IVCSD meetings, as well as IVRPD meetings. I've attended some IVRPD meetings in person as well. And I also regularly provide public comment to federal, state, and local agencies, mostly related to like my outdoor recreation passions and pursuits. But like land use issues, basically. So stuff to the National Park Service, and Bureau of Land Management, things like that, Federal Aviation Administration. But I think that this question kind of gets at the dichotomy between being a member of the public making comment from an impassioned perspective, which is generally how I am when I'm laying out an argument and advocating really strongly for my own kind of pet issue, versus being a member of a decision-making body who needs to analyze and receive all of those different public comments, those different perspectives that come in, and really prioritize the different perspectives of interested stakeholders over our own beliefs. So yeah, I think my focus is on the input of the most interested stakeholders in any sort of decision, and then distilling that through the lens of federal, state, local laws that really kind of limit what the CSD can do, or how the CSD can do things. So yeah, that's kind of the way that I like triage that approach.
All right, thank you for that answer. You have about 4.5 minutes left. So if any board members have follow-up questions they want to ask, please jump in. Raise your hand, Spencer.
Thank you, Scott. I asked this question to each of our applicants. Can you commit to serving the full 2-year term on this board?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Jay.
Do you believe the IVCSD has been an effective use of your tax money? If so, what services are you benefiting from, either directly or indirectly? If not, do you believe this can be addressed, and how would you go about doing so?
Yeah, I think that the CSD has done a good job of growing, and so I personally benefit from the Compost Collective. I commented at the last regular meeting about my enthusiasm for that program, and also things like Ivy beautification efforts, the Ivy Beautiful program. I think Henry last night talked about the rainbows on the sidewalks. I also love those. So things like that. But I also think that within this question, there's a question of like taxpayer money, and then there's also like other funding sources, essentially. So for instance, I know that the UC has pledged $200,000 a year grant to IVCSD for projects that they work on together. And I'm pretty sure that there's still an unused portion of that. So figuring out essentially how to make better use of all the funds available to the CSD, I think is really important. And especially in situations where where maybe there's grants or like negotiations that that occur, using those funds to display that there's a need for them and that they're being used well, so that those funds are renewed and that they could even maybe be extended to greater amounts in the future, I think is important.
All right, any other board members with questions? Spencer.
Another question I've been asking to applicants is, our board of directors right now does not necessarily represent or look like our community when it comes to racial, ethnic, and gender diversity. Can you talk about your commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion and how you would help further that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was actually, I was going to address this if anybody was going to ask like what's your biggest weakness as an applicant question, because like I realized that and recognize that I am a white male applying for a decision-making governmental body. And I really do try, like my approach to equity and inclusivity basically is that I seek out voices from the Black community, the Latinx community, the AAPI community, the queer community, the disabled community, to try and broaden my perspective. I realize that I can never have those lived experiences, no matter how much I seek out voices and try to educate myself. But what I can do is try to grow as an ally and really try to help essentially keep my privileges in check. And I think that's especially important as a potential decision maker. One thing that I really appreciate that the CSD does, by the way, is the land acknowledgement at the beginning of every meeting. I worked during law school for a summer for a Chumash Foundation, the Wishtoyo Foundation, and I was focusing on environmental law issues that were to protect their traditional habitat. And also I spent a summer working out on Santa Cruz Island as a kayaking guide. And I made a strong point to try to impart some knowledge and history of the island Chumash and the traditional people who call Santa Cruz Island Limu, who call it home. So yeah, that's basically my approach to allyship, and whether or not I'm on the board, I'm going to continue to grow in that way. But if I were to become a member of the board, I'd try to continue to help the CSD grow like that too.
All right, well, thank you, Scott. That concludes our 20 minutes with you. And now we'd like to move on to our next candidate. I'd like to welcome Ella Scholes.
Sorry.
All right, I have your timer here ready to start. And here we go. Question number 1. Why do you want to join the IVCSD Board of Directors?
Well, first off, I want to thank you guys so much for having me here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for interviewing me. Even though I've only been in IB for 2 years, I really have quickly fallen in love with this little town. I actually got the unique opportunity to live both years in IB. I'm living in off campus now, but I was in Tropicana Gardens last year, so I have been in the community for 2 years. I do feel that I've missed a huge part of being in the community, especially last year and earlier in, I guess, technically last calendar year, but I do feel I've missed a lot by not being involved as much. Quite honestly, my freshman year was a bit of a whirlwind, but I do feel like I'm a little closer to landing, and I really would love to be involved with this little town as I start to figure out where I'm going on with my life. There is no other place quite like IB. It's small and walkable, and it's close to campus, and it really does create a unique sense of community and cooperation that's difficult to find. I mean, what other UC has a place like this? Like, this is like incredibly unique and wonderful. And I care about the students and I care about the families in the area, and I want to represent them within our local Once again, this is an amazing opportunity to serve with some really amazing people, and it's an opportunity to make some amazing changes in the area and see a direct impact of my work, which I see is often different from larger federal government work because it is not easy per se, but it is easier than seeing it on a federal level.
All right, thank you. Question number 2. What would you do if you believed you needed more accurate and complete information in order to make a board decision?
First off, I'm a huge fan of research. I love doing my research. I love my internet time. I love taking my notes. I'm a big research person. And I like to see what resources that I would need to make the decision. Like that's a baseline for me. I need to know what resources that I'd require to make a decision. Alongside that, I'd ask around, ask coworkers, ask friends, and try to find the most well-rounded ideas for a solution. And also consulting the CSD staff, everyone that's involved, including the manager, community centers, and other staff throughout IV, they're the ones that are interacting directly alongside us. And it's incredibly important to see what their opinion is. It's not something that can be put off. Of course, in doing the research, it's important to find out what professionals would be required to make that decision and find the experts, if there are any, for the particular issue. And then the most important to me, at least, is consult the community at large. These are the people that are being represented, and thus their opinion is paramount in making any decision and finding any solution.
Thank you. Question number 3. How would you collect and respond to feedback from Isla Vista community members?
As I said earlier, I'm a big fan of like looking stuff up on the internet. So I really do love the report issue page that you guys have on the website at the top. If I had an issue, that would be the first place I would go to look. I'd make sure to be checking that frequently, making sure everything there is addressed and solved. And if it turns out there is an issue getting feedback, perhaps posters linking the website and that place to get feedback, publicizing that report issue, I think it is a really good source, a good way to publicize that, and you can publicize it through email list, lots of different ways to do that. Responding to feedback, at least in my opinion, would require seeing if there is a problem and what the solution to that problem is. We should be responding with possible solutions. There's a lot of time there is never a very clear-cut solution. So finding possible solutions and looking at different ways to the problem is a big one for me. I know that there's a public comment period in these meetings, which I think is a good place to respond to feedback. I was looking at the agendas, and there's certain things that are not allowed to be responded to, so I don't know what you can respond to in those public comment sessions. But if you can, it's a good place to offer potential solutions and at the very least hear issues. And if the community feels they're not being heard by the board, I know a lot of other candidates said that. The surveys are amazing. I love surveys. They're great. They show a lot of cool information. So surveys.
All right, question number 4. What will success for you in this role look like 1 year from now? In your mind, what kind of things create an experience of success?
So obviously I've looked at all the goals, and I'm a really big fan of getting the goals completed. Like the public safety one is a really, really huge one for me. I think that's incredibly important, especially for such a town as us. Both the qualitative and quantitative measures the board takes to measure our success is a really cool way to see whether those goals are being taken, and it's visible and it's metric, and it's wonderful. I like seeing that. And this is going to sound really, really cheesy, but like everything that I do in life is I want to make the world a better place for people after me and people during my life. So if my work in a year can make one person happy, healthy, or more successful, I will be happy with the work I have done. Anything that improves the health and well-being of another person in this little town or even outside the town will count as a success for me. Of course, it's not contained to like one person, but like that is a measure of success for me to show that. And tying off that point, it really is important to make others feel successful and support them in their goals and make them feel safe in this town.
All right, thank you. Question number 5. Have you attended or watched a board meeting of IVCSD or some other elected body? Was there an issue raised that you felt strongly about? How would you express your stance on the issue? If you were on the board and it came time to cast your vote, what role would community concerns, state, local, and federal laws, the input of staff and board members, and your own values and beliefs have in determining your vote?
As I mentioned earlier, public safety is a really, really huge one for me. As a female student involved with Greek life, I often don't feel comfortable walking home at night. I will often have my male or male presenting friends walk me home because it really does not feel safe to me. And I think there needs to be a lot more visibility around this. And I'm not actually sure that this was brought up at a board meeting, but because it is so recent, but the anti-Semitic remarks that were being publicized around Ivy, it needs to be addressed. And it's likely in tandem with the school. They're a huge, huge issue. And as a Jewish student, it's incredibly important to address this and make a statement about what we as a community can do to stop hate speech such as that. It is another reason that I don't feel safe occasionally, but it is a big issue. Lastly, there is also the issue of lighting. This does tie into public safety. And while we've made huge strides in this, it does need to be accessible on less popular streets. On this topic, I'm actually planning on going to that lighting walk. I think it's on the 21st, but either way, I really do want to be more involved with what's going on. Oh, I'm sorry, I split it into two. Community concerns will be paramount in making my decision, as the community are the people that I'm representing and the ones I'm working for. I mean, and obviously state, federal, local laws, they will all factor into making a decision, and the one that is best for the community, make sure that they are compatible with the decisions that we want or we choose to make. Lastly, of course, I would consider all staff and board members as they are all informed, concerned citizens, and my values and beliefs. I stand as a person that I will never make a decision that my gut feels is ethically wrong. As I mentioned before, it is most important for me to improve the lives of people in the community. And confidently, I can say that I would not make a decision that I did not think that was ethically correct and fair for all the people in this community.
Okay, thank you for that. We're just about 8 minutes in, so you have 12 minutes left. Do any other board members have questions they would like to ask?
Okay. Can you commit to serving out the full 2-year term for this position?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you believe the IVCSD has been an effective use of your tax money? If so, what services are you benefiting from, either directly or indirectly? If not, do you believe this can be addressed, and how would you go about doing so?
First off, yes, I think we do really amazing things. I know several other people mentioned it, but those rainbow sidewalks, I really love them. They make me so happy. Walking down Pardal and seeing the rainbow sidewalks every morning when I'm on my way to class is incredibly exciting, and it's really fun. And I like seeing that we are making an amazing statement, both aesthetically and like it is a good statement politically. The compost is also an incredibly creative and unique idea for Ivy, especially considering how small a town we are. The fact that we can implement that is incredibly impressive, and it's something that I'm proud of being in this town. And lastly, I can't really imagine how much effort it took to get the lights, which really are a huge improvement for both like the aesthetic value of Ivy as well as like the safety value. So that's a big one for me too. So yes, I do think we use our tax dollars well.
All right. Any other board members have questions? You raising your hand?
No.
Oh.
Spencer always has another one.
I'll ask my second question, which is that our board does not necessarily reflect the rich racial, ethnic, and gender diversity of our community. How will you, as a board member, further diversity, equity, and inclusion, and further the cause of justice?
Well, the big one for me is outreach. I am a student, so I do have the ability to effectively reach out to groups that are organized under the umbrella of the school and student organizations. And honestly, the most important thing for me is, as a white woman, I cannot speak to a lot of different groups. Like most groups, I can't speak to. So I think the most important thing, at least in my opinion, is to listen to what people are telling us. We have to listen and see exactly the experience of other people and take that into consideration when making decisions, as there are certain things that I cannot speak on and some of us cannot speak on.
Dr. Freeman.
So for many of the candidates who've applied, I've seen them at previous meetings and I remember them participating in those meetings. Now, one thing is it's possible that I'm horrible at names. And so for all I know, you literally have spoken many times and I simply have forgotten. And also we've been on Zoom and I don't always catch all the faces. So it's for all but I do not remember seeing you at previous meetings. And so one thing I always try to understand is what brings somebody who had previously not been participating in the process to suddenly want a seat at the table. And so I asked one of the previous candidates who had the same interest in the same question, and I'm asking that question to you. And I'm not certain what answer makes any sense anyway, but so just that's my thought process, and I'm curious about a response.
To be honest, like I said before, my freshman year was a moment. Like, it was not a great experience, and I really felt like I've only gotten on my feet this year. So I really didn't even know that this existed until like early this year. I saw Olivia running for the position, and I thought that was an amazing thing to do. And I have seen several of the meetings on YouTube. It's difficult to get there in person occasionally, but yeah, I felt like there wasn't enough student representation on the board, and I myself as a student wanted to be more involved, especially since IB is a good chunk of students. And yeah, even if nothing happens with this, I do continue to want to be involved. The lighting walk, coming to the meeting, seeing them on YouTube if I can't get there. That's all really important for me.
Thank you for adding the last part, because I'd also forgotten this the last time I asked the question, which was, and if you do not get the position today, are you intending to continue to remain involved anyway? And you don't anticipate that, so.
Okay, any other questions, board members? Let's see. Since we have some time, I wanted to understand a little bit better an answer that you gave for our fourth question, where you mentioned using qualitative or quantitative measures in regards to our board goals. If you could just like give us some more color on that. I was trying to juggle the things, and I want to make sure I heard your answer clearly.
Yeah, seeing exactly in something like the lights, for example, seeing actual numbers and the actual difference is really nice for me, especially in seeing the success of a goal. So seeing like, it's a silly answer, but like exactly the number of lights we got up, exactly how much time it took, and exactly how much of an improvement it is a big one for me. Plus, like qualitative, we can see the lights, but so to speak, with other issues that are less numerical.
Gotcha. Okay. Just what I've written. And I wanted to hear a little bit about your experience where you mentioned in your first answer about loving this community specifically for its like smallness and its walkability and those types of issues. Yeah, please fill me in more.
I mean, I walked here. Like, I walked to a job interview. Like, that's insane. Like, and it wasn't even a long walk. And I really love the fact that like I can walk to class, and then on my way home, I stroll through Pardal, and I can go stop and grab a Blenders. Like, it really does feel like a home, and it feels like a community. And because there's so many students and families, it does feel supportive. And I do feel like Ivy is, it's got each other's back. Like, we're there for each other. And I feel like the CSD is a big reason that we are so there for each other. So another reason that I love this community so much.
Great, thank you. I think I might have answered that question exactly the same. Let's see. Anyone else on the board have questions? No. Okay. Well, thank you for your time. Actually, let me make sure you don't have any other extra time. So you have 6 minutes left. If you want to, if you want to fill out any closing remarks for all of us, anything we didn't ask you, go right ahead.
I wrote down some challenges that I saw to Ivy. Housing is obviously a really big issue. It's really unaffordable, and we need solutions to the rent. It's awful that a lot of my peers and a lot of the community members can't afford safe and livable housing. And while it is a difficult issue to tackle, it is one that we need to take on as a community. As I said before, safety is a huge one for me. All of my female and female presenting friends don't feel safe walking home. And I really love CSO, and I love that we're expanding that. And I really, really like the reasoning behind it, but I also think that there's a systemic issue around the safety in the community that needs to be addressed. And then I really do appreciate the time all of you guys are taking to interview me. I would love to be a part of the board, and if I'm not, I'd still love to be involved and come to this meeting more frequently. Thank you again for your time, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We will now move on to the discussion period of our board vacancy interviews. I think before I open this up to full board member discussion, I want to leave a moment for the public to comment and let us know about different candidates, or just let us know. Is there any public comments?
Well, first of all, it's a beautiful process. It is a true exercise in democracy, and it offers an opportunity to get an inside view of all the candidates. The thing that stands out to me about every single one of the candidates that spoke in this 2-day process is that we all care about the community. And my view on it is, regardless of any of us, whoever gets appointed to the seat, it's good for the community. It's fantastic for the community. Everybody that has spoken has been nothing less than wonderful. And I'm not including myself in that, but
You can.
that'll be your job, not mine. But I think this is a wonderful process. And last night, Kelly and I were talking, and one of the things that it has led to is a pledge from all of us. So regardless of what the outcome of tonight's decision is, we've pledged to be more active and more engaged with IVCSD and other aspects, you know, reaching outside of IVCSD with the community. We are a community. We are, I keep saying it, we are a dynamic, diverse, inclusive, and welcoming. That's my view on it. And now that this process, I think, has opened up the possibility for more people to be involved and engaged. And I thank you, each and every one of you, for the time that you've taken to listen to each and every one of us for 20 minutes. And you know, it's been great. It's a fantastic experience, and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate everything you all have done.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? Ms. Bertrand.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So I have a question. Can I get my job back?
Oh my God, you're so funny.
But seriously, I was able to attend last night, and I am really impressed with the number of candidates who applied for this position. Having 8 people put themselves out there originally, when I first saw that, I was, I mean, very proud of the organization, but also very surprised. Like, that just shows the progress we're making in building our relationships in the community and creating a space where people feel that they want a seat at the table. I think that's really special. Just looking around the room, people are bringing a lot of great potential to this. I mean, Henry, someone who has a big heart for the community, and now a lot of people think you're an elected official just because of how you hold it down on social media. But anyway, Henry has a lot of heart for this community. Ella, I think, brings a great perspective as someone who's new to Isla Vista and is excited to be here. Christina has served the community for many years, especially working with some of our most vulnerable community members. I've really been inspired by hearing about how Scott has come back to Isla Vista, and also impressed by his technical background, having studied law and what that could mean for the district. Just as a few examples of the great applicants that we have. So I'm not going to back any specific applicants, but I will voice a few things that I think are important to consider in making this decision. Number one, it's really important that we do have diverse perspectives at this table. And as Director Brandt has been asking, it's really important that we have someone who is committed to advocating for equity, diversity, inclusion, and especially justice. So definitely want to prioritize that. Number two, someone who's willing to connect our organization to new segments of the community or segments that we might not have the strongest relationships with right now. It doesn't mean that they have the tightest relationships either, but someone who's willing to do that work. And then number three, someone who you feel really has a handle on the issues that matter for the future of Isla Vista. So I'd advise that you consider those criteria, and I'm really excited for you and grateful for all who applied. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other public comments? Anyone on Zoom? Nothing on Zoom. Then on Zoom. Okay, I'd now like to open this period up for board discussion. Yeah, let me go real quick to this process. Yeah, I'll start with some simple comments that are safe, but like Ethan just mentioned, I'm very proud that we had so many candidates apply for this position. And I feel lucky that I'm on the board without having to battle all these different candidates. And it makes me very, it makes me very, proud of the future that Iovist is growing into. It makes me very excited for hopefully more, participation in all of our types of events, committees, and just public meetings in general. And I was shocked a little bit. I saw we had a couple of early applicants, and then I left the country for some personal travel, and I came back to the news that we had quadrupled the number of our candidates, and it was both a relief and a stress, but I'm very proud that we've reached so many people. And some people did participate and found the need to get out there. So I'm really proud of our staff for making that connection. And also, again, as Ethan just so well put, that we have a very diverse network of candidates who have applied. People who have been here for 2 years, people who have been here for 35 plus years. It's incredible. I know myself as a director, even as board president, have a lot to learn from each one of the candidates, and I plan to interact with all of you in the future, and whether I'm on the board or not, just to reach out and learn and to make sure that you are participating. So thank you for all of you who have applied. Any other board members want to jump in and share some discussion points?
Do you want to talk about the process?
Yes, I'll jump in real quickly about the process. So once we are done with this discussionary period, each director will be asked to state who their first choice candidate is, i.e., you could make the appointment by yourself unilaterally. Who would you pick? We will then see if any candidate receives the majority of directors listing them as their first choice. The majority of this board would be 4. So if someone were to meet the threshold of 4 first place votes, we would then be able to make a motion on that person and electing them or appointing them to the board. If we do not receive 4 first choice votes, the candidate who received the least amount of votes are removed from the options, and we will go into a second round of voting for each director to state who their top pick is out of their remaining pool. This will repeat until we have a majority of votes for one person. Now, the votes are not the decision, they are not the motion, they are merely a tool for all of us to understand each other's position better and understand our candidates better as we discuss why we have put different individuals at 1 and other individuals at 2 or 3. So once we have a strong majority selection, we will then make a motion to appoint that person to the board.
And could I ask for clarification? Because I heard you say we would say our top choice, but then just now I'm hearing you say 2 and 3. So when do we go beyond 1 to 2 and 3?
We will go on to 2 and 3 after that
second
first.
time. Okay.
Yes, after that first round. But hopefully, I can't say hopefully because it is going to be hard. I know it's going to be hard for me to make even a first choice vote. But yeah, that is the process we will be going through before we begin the actual motion.
Well, I just like to say on the good side, I feel like any candidate that we pick is great. So we can't go wrong.
Let's just flip a coin.
And I've never participated in this kind of a public job interview before, where the questions are all out there, everybody can listen to everybody else talk. Poor Henry, he gave such great answers going in. If I'd been a candidate, I would have been like, oh yeah, that's what Henry said, I'm gonna say that. So it's kind of an interesting process, and it just mirrors all that we do in terms of transparency. And again, I just found something to be so moved by in each candidate, and every single one of them I can imagine sitting with us and being a great partner. So I feel very confident that however this comes down, we're going to be happy.
I'd like to echo what you said. I think that I just want to thank everyone who participated. I was really moved by a lot of your responses. It's really clear that you put a lot of thought into this. It's something that you care about. And there's something very special about wanting to serve the community that you live in. And it's very rewarding. I don't live in Isla Vista, but having served in other roles, I can say that it's very rewarding to live in a community and then be able to shape the community that you live in by your work. And what I love about this process is that it's brought such a level of engagement that we need and want. And because your board is only as good as the input that you bring to the table. And whether you bring it at the table with us, or whether you bring it through public comment or going on walking, lighting tours, or whatever it is, it's so important. And just your showing up and going through this process shows how much you care. And I just want to just thank everyone for just coming to the table and sharing your interest and your passion. And that's a big, it takes a lot of courage. I mentioned last night, it takes a lot of courage. And just know that this won't be an easy decision, but golly, there are so many ways to be a voice in your community, wherever you land. And I hope that we continue to see you all as we move forward with this board. Thank you.
Director Freeman.
I agree with these comments, and due to my agreements with these comments, I'm very happy that we're going down this path of having this kind of conceptual ranked choice voting mechanism today. My experience, having done years of participating in this process as one of the decision makers, as one of the people who's being decided on, as one of the people in the audience watching the process, is that what always ends up happening is that 2 or 3 people will end up saying that providing an impassioned speech about their favorite candidate. Then what will happen is that somebody will decide mentally, and they will in fact say out loud that I think we've heard enough today and our decision is clear. There is one candidate who stands heads and shoulders above the rest of the field, and then I make a motion for, and they will blurt out somebody's name. Of course, they've probably read the room well enough that there's at least one other person who will second it. And then we end up in some complicated charged argument about whether, like, do I vote no, even though I think that they're fine because there's someone else. And so I am really excited, in no small part, because we have so many good candidates here that I think that process leads to, and I've seen people after some of these processes in the audience complaining about how, oh, that was because that was the person who was motioned first. That's the decision ended up happening. And so I'm really excited to be doing what we're doing here today. Now, moving on my part from I think we have so many strong candidates. I do think we are here to discuss some about the positives and negatives of these candidates. And I was particularly excited to see Christina Liddick's name come before our board. She's somebody who has been involved in the IVCSD, I think pretty much since we started, if not before we started. Christina is somebody who has a deep knowledge of the political process in which we operate, as well as the nonprofit landscape in which we operate, is somebody who is deeply connected with some of our, as we described, most vulnerable community members and people who oftentimes end up getting overlooked, and who during various of our conversations are the people who we might accidentally end up making the most negative effects on if we are more careful. And so I'm very excited about Christina, and she is my top choice today.
All right. Thank you for that. Any other board members want to jump in with some comments or discussion? Director Brandt.
Well, if you all thought that it was awkward to have a job interview in public, just wait how awkward it is to listen to it. And on top of that, every interview process that I've ever been a part of, it's been to hire someone that either I'm supervising or that someone underneath me is supervisor, or advising someone who's going to be supervising a person. And we're doing something a lot different. We're picking a colleague. We're picking someone that is going to be equals with us, that's going to have the same privileges and responsibilities. And it's much different. So I want to give you a little bit of an idea of kind of how I personally approach that. I thought about a number of key things. The first thing is, does this candidate have the skills that are needed to be a good board member? And for me, what that really means is communication, listening, as well as patience and the ability to work collaboratively. I also thought about does each candidate already show, are they already showing leadership skills in the community in different aspects of things that they're involved in, whether that's in a nonprofit, in a student group, in just a group of their neighbors. And I also thought about how can we make our board of directors a more diverse board that looks like our community and better reflects our community. Experience is an important thing for me too, but I also remember what it was like when I first got elected and the voters put their trust in me when I was only 19 years old. I remember how acutely aware I was at the time of all the things that I didn't know. And the fact that I still had that opportunity and others similarly did is a testament to what I think is great about Isla Vista, which is that we have a community that has a median age of about 21 years old. It is a very young community. We're never going to get the people with incredibly long resumes and tons of experience doing this in policy or that. Well, there's a reason. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that because you are both our appointed board and we constructed the board for this purpose, and you provide that. I'm talking about for our elected members over here. No disrespect.
I know. We're teasing. Yeah.
And yeah, I think too, just that, you know, I was so impressed with all of your applications. And I think you all do have experiences that would all be incredibly valued in much different ways, such a diversity of experiences, which to me was really incredible. And so I'll share well, are we doing just our top? Do we have to choose a top?
Well, this is definitely this is the discussion period, but the first, yeah, please jump in like when either now or later when I ask for it, specifically your top choice. Yes. But you don't have to say that now. There will be a much more obvious time period to say that, but yes.
Okay, well, I'll wait and hold off for others to talk about that.
Okay. Does anyone else have any discussion or comments they want to make?
Try to sway other people towards your candidate.
We're not doing that.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Spencer did a really good job of laying out a lot of those considerations to take into account. And I would definitely say that those mirror my thought process as well.
I want to add something that's similar to a level of comment that Spencer made about the qualities that I've tried to observe in each candidate. And I thought about a quality myself that can be, for me, I look at internally a little bit as a weakness, which is how I've grown as a candidate. I don't think that I came to this board extremely knowledgeable of what the board could do or how even a board meeting operates. But I did come with a lot of knowledge of what I appreciated about this community, what I felt was very unique about this community. And I know that I, as a director, have grown tons, but not just as a director, I've grown tons as a person from being a part of this board, from participating, from making new friends, from making new colleagues in the community, new professional relationships, and considering new perspectives definitely has all been a learning process for me as a director of this board. So that is definitely an issue that I, you know, just like Spencer mentioned, with experience, there's also the potential and something that I know that all my other decision makers are considering right now. Director Freeman.
That's something I guess I almost feel I didn't think I would have to say, but I guess I'll feel the need to say, is that, so from my perspective, one of the reasons why we exist on a board together is in order to have the discussions about the complicated topics. And so part of that, it is hard, right? Because we are having discussions that are in public. And I think this is probably one of the hardest kinds of discussions that we have, because we have people who we are judging, some of whom are people that we've known for many years, and some of whom are people that maybe assumed going in they'd get a vote or something. And no, it turns out we're voting differently because we're, board members who are doing things based upon the needs of the community. And so because of that, I feel like it's something where we might shy away from saying that, like my case saying like the reasons why I think that Christina would be a particularly good choice for this position, and kind of like keeping our cards close to our chest so that we can divulge the least amount of information. And yet if you first of all take that and apply it to another vote that we might have, where we're trying to make a decision about whether or not to close down a street for a particular reason. And it's just like, okay, well, none of the board members say anything. We've all heard the ideas, and then we will just wait until the vote in order to say it. We lose a lot of the benefit of having a team of people who are able to discuss things. So I'm actually, I guess in some sense, very disappointed that we're going to now go into a voting process, and I don't really have any understanding of what, maybe you disagree with me. I'd be interested in hearing about that, if what your kind of ideas are, and we're just going to jump into, a voting process that I'm very excited by, and I think mitigates potential damage of this sort of thing. But it is weird to me that is how we're going about it.
But streets don't have feelings.
I do get that.
Okay, let's just be clear.
But we opted into this extremely awkward position of having to be able to represent the community and discuss things in public in this way. So, and also for what it's worth, I say that as somebody who has sat in the audience on the other side of this, being judged by people on panels. And in fact, I was one time the only person who applied, and they didn't choose me.
Oh.
2 times in a row. That was like the most awkward thing ever. They just kept extending the deadline. No, not him. Anybody.
Oh my gosh.
And yet I'm okay with it. I was okay with it. I was okay with the process. I was okay with the board, and I'm now on it. That was love.
That was Lefko. I was wondering if that was Lefko. They're very mean people.
Yeah, but I didn't take any issue with it, because it's just like, that's just how the process works.
Yeah. It's not personal. Yeah.
Well, not everyone's you.
Yeah, good for you.
Well, I appreciate that vulnerability, Jay, and I'll take your invitation and I'll jump in a little bit with hopefully a more direct point of where I'm feeling about the candidates. So as I just mentioned, part of my experience as director has been so much growth and learning and progress. And when I think about what Isla Vista is as a microcosm of like a much larger community that we all live in, we all have our lives outside of Isla Vista also. But I see Isla Vista as a place full of growth, constantly growing. And 2 years ago now, or 1.5 years ago now, when I was first proposed to be president at an organizational session, and I was dramatically not prepared for that consideration. But I accepted the role as vice president at that time. I began to think, what is my passion for Isla Vista? What is my passion for being on this board? And I wanted to think very strongly about the future of Isla Vista, when maybe I don't visually or even truthfully represent what Isla Vista is. Maybe when I don't live in Isla Vista and I become just a visitor in the future. And I wanted to think, what work do I do here with the CSD will eventually build an Isla Vista that more people than just people who live here are very proud of, that more people than just the long-term students and residents and neighbors are very proud of. When do I build the Isla Vista that is now much more dramatically a destination point, not just for 19 to 25-year-olds? And I'm constantly thinking about us as directors and what future are we laying, what foundation are we laying? Looking at all the processes we've attempted in the last 2 years, you don't always get to build the house in 1 year, but if you lay a very beautiful and strong foundation, then the people who come after you and finish building that house, finish getting the parking study off of the ground, can have a much more successful object, much more successful tool, much more successful community. So I'm thinking very much about which of these candidates has that strongest view and potential to affect a beautiful and loving and caring Isla Vista. Which of these candidates has the most potential to affect a just Isla Vista? Those are the concepts I'm thinking very hard about, and I will be the second person to jump out and say who my first choice is. And my first choice is Scott Ball. And that comes with a lot of deliberation if I say pain, he might take it the wrong way, but Scott is a friend of mine, but I didn't want to be supporting him as a candidate as this way that we support teams like fans and things like that. I wanted to be making a very just decision. I wanted to make sure that we had so many candidates. I wanted to make sure that we asked the right questions. And I think that with my team and other directors, we were able to achieve that. We were able to achieve a very strong process. But after hearing lots of discussion and what could be more discussion, but hearing lots of answers and thought out answers, Scott is my first choice.
Well, here we go on the diversity, yeah.
Dr. Brand.
Well, I'll follow suit and talk about my first choice. And in full disclosure, I think it's possible my second and third have been named. But I'd like to nominate Ella Schultz. I think that Ella came for us tonight and showed that she's really an effective communicator. I think that her background working as a student that's involved in the Greek community as a young woman living in Isla Vista is really important. And I'll tell you a little bit about why I think that's really important. We had some recent safety challenges, including the kidnapping last year. And at the time, we had Catherine Flaherty on our board, who may or may not be in the audience tonight. I'm not sure if she is.
She was gonna try. She's gonna.
I know she's gonna try. She's traveling, but Catherine, watching her spring into action and communicate important, timely information to residents while there was this safety issue happening in our community was like watching a master at work. It was really informative and reminded me how important it is for our board of directors to really be connected with that community in particular, just because of how much of a nexus of social life it has in the community, how quickly information, whether it be correct information or incorrect information, can spread. And I think that that is one of many incredible assets that Ella would bring to the board. And I also think that, it's not just Catherine. We've had 3 incredible women leaders on our board that have been involved in that Greek life system. And we currently do not have that. We've lost that at the current moment. And so I think that it's a niche in the board that I would implore my colleagues to consider. I think that Ella's presentation to us, an interview, kind of speaks for itself in terms of the knowledge that she has of the district and her passion for Isla Vista, which frankly it's been the best part about this for me has been seeing just like how other people feel just as passionate about our community as I do. And it's really inspiring because I think like Ethan, along the lines that he was sharing, remember what it was like when this was kind of just an idea in people's head. I know that Jonathan remembers that very well. And to be able to see it be manifested in a place where people share that care and that values all of our applicants. I mean, it's really cool. So.
I really like this process. I'm liking it better now. Because I see now the value of talking about, what your decision making is about and what values you're kind of processing and how people align with those, what you think is best for the board. So I think I like it. So I'll jump in. I love that we're all in a different place. It's so cool. It kind of is just about like how we are, right?
So there's 6 board members and 6 candidates, and if we all choose a different candidate, I didn't.
Yeah. I did eat dinner beforehand because I anticipated a late night. Yeah, that's not too late. So I was really struck by Ella, and I was really struck by Scott's answers. I appreciated the thoroughness that they answered the questions and really gave a lot of depth in their answers. You could tell that they had done research and just put a lot of thought and heart into their answers. I was really impressed by both. I really like Scott, I think probably because he's like me, which is so egotistical, but I just like the way his brain works, you know, and I like that he's like got this kind of governmental background. And so I could see him really bringing a sense of stability to our board and helping us drive decisions. Like I can just see how his brain works. I think he will lead us in a good way. So I really like that. I really liked Ella's passion. And golly, Ella, you're a great speaker. You just really showed so much of yourself, and I appreciate how you came across to us and things that you care about is really important. You put a lot of thought into that. So I really also liked Ella. Two things that Ella and Scott said that really struck me, and I'm learning, you know, I'm 58 and I'm learning about diversity and equity and inclusion and how I can be a better listener. And I have 3 children that are all kind of diverse, and they're always checking me in terms of like to think about how I see myself, how I see my privilege, and how I can check my privilege. I think somebody, it was Ella said it or Scott said it, and I really appreciate that because I don't represent Isla Vista at all, and so it really means that it's incumbent upon us to find other lived experiences and talk to people who are different than us. So we are bringing those voices to the board. And so I really appreciated both of your answers. I really also, Christina, appreciated the passion that you carried through in terms of your work with the houseless community. It was so moving to hear from you last night and to hear about your work and your commitment to the people that are houseless. And then lastly, I just want to say I really liked Henry. I think Henry brings a demographic to this board that we don't have. And that is a person who has lived in our community for a long time, that has a diverse background, that knows everyone, and isn't afraid to kind of talk about what he sees and what he hears. And I think there's a lot of value to that. So I'm going to say that my top choice, it's tough. Like I would say very tough, but I'm going to say my top choice is Henry because I really like the demographic and the vision that he brings to this role. And I think that he just brings a voice to our board that I don't think we have. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're next.
Okay. Well, as I said, I found all of the candidates just terrific. And so any one of them I would be privileged and honored to sit next to. But I think my final thought is that we are representing a community that has a huge student demographic. And, you know, that's not really reflected on our board right now. And I really liked what Ella had to say about safety for young women in our community. I think safety is a very important part of our charge. And so I think that's an important thing for us to focus on. And I think that we really need to engage the student community in making a lot of these decisions. So for that reason, I would choose Ella.
That brings it to me. I feel like for a minute now, I've been hesitant to say anything because like Marcos, Ella and I have worked together in past situations, but she is also my top pick. And I say that because I agree with Marcos's statement about the opportunity for growth. And I think that I see a lot of opportunity for growth in Ella, and I see how much she has grown already this year. I had the privilege of working with her on the Salute Carvajal campaign, and we got close through that. And she has really come out of her shell in public speaking. And I think that was definitely proved to me tonight in hearing her speak for us. And also, I do think that she brings in more of the student perspective. And as a student, I agree that that is something that I would like to see. Ella and I dipped our toes into a lot of different pools, a lot of the same pools, but I'm excited to see what we see differently. And I do think that it would be nice to have a perspective that is somewhat similar to mine, but can also point out the differences and collaborate in that way as well. So Ella is also my top choice.
All right. Okay, so we have, so we don't have a majority choice yet. And now, as I said earlier, we would be going on to a second voting process.
That was our first voting process. That was like literally it. I thought we just.
No,
had our opinions.
yeah, we were kind of discussing, so if people want to.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
just
got
be
it.
Yeah.
Different, I mean, like.
Okay, yeah, I
I
mean-
feel like we should be fair, but I'm not changing mine, but I'm just,
Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to like
Yeah.
defending.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
I'm glad that you all shared who your first choice would be. I'm glad. Yeah, no, this is one of those things that as president, when I said I was going to do this, I wasn't expecting to be figuring out on the fly. Ethan had a great conversation with me in the past in which he said, this is like running the orchestra and playing an instrument at the same time.
Mhm.
I'm not good at music though, so it's even harder. Yeah, I think maybe we should make this a little bit more visually clear. Jonathan and I discussed having this like a sheet up shared on the screen so folks can see the numbers and people on Zoom can see a little bit more of what's going on more clearly.
For what it's worth, very simply, there were 3 votes for Ella, and of the people who did not vote for Ella,
Mhm.
is Ella any of our second choice? Is Ella your second choice?
Yes.
Okay, then Ella wins. We don't have to, like, it's very, this process is very easy, actually, if you do it that way. If you just work through it, you don't have to do the spreadsheet. But what makes it sound complicated is you look through the whole algorithm, the way it works is that you take the people who got the least votes and you say, oh, well, they lost. Now those people go to their second choice. So you all stick with Ella and we redistribute our votes to the other parties that were maximum. But the thing is that Ella got 3, everyone else only got 1. The way that this algorithm works essentially gives Ella the vote. So it's really fast to just ask that question. So.
Well, that was quick.
Yeah, it's not as hard as you think it is. When you
I thought we
actually.
would have different second
Well,
choices for some reason.
I mean, you could, but it's mathematically not necessary, but
I was confused too.
You were, okay. Thank you. That makes me feel so much better.
We also technically did not vote to establish this process. So if you all want to cause chaos now, you can. The process that sort of great.
No, but we haven't heard from Ross. He's strangely silent.
We're texting.
Oh, you are, you're texting.
Well, I don't want to.
Yeah, I got this question last night, and the only requirement under the government code is that the votes not be secret. So the board selecting a ranked choice voting method is perfectly allowable. It's just it needs to all happen in public, which is what's been going on. So I think my only request in communicating with Jonathan is that you do have make a record of whose everyone's vote actually is. It sounds like people were making recommendations and identifying the people that they had as their top choice. If that can reasonably be considered to be your vote, then I think that should be recorded. And then at least go through the process for the benefit of everyone. Should this process of ranked choice voting come up again, you can be more comfortable with how it's used. It seems like it's a foregone conclusion, but it may not necessarily be. I think it's important to go through the process, both for transparency to folks who are in the room and watching on Zoom, and for anybody who watches this at a later date, to see the board go through the process from start to finish and have an official final announcement on who the winner would be.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I appreciate that. That's very helpful, very well said. So I think that we should cast our first place votes via this sheet. That way it's visually clear for anyone watching. That way we're all clear of what we're doing. So the way it's organized is we have the candidate names set up. Henry, you're at the top. So everyone who would like to give their first place vote to Henry, please raise your hand. Okay, that's one vote. Everyone who would like to give their first place vote to Kellen, please raise your hand. All right.
Maybe I won't write that. Sorry, it's just a term that is used. That's like the technical term.
Okay,
Yeah.
everyone who would like to give their first place vote to Christina, please raise your hand.
Oh, Jay's so tired he can't raise his head.
I was laughing so hard.
Oh,
to be
you're
eliminated.
laughing.
I was like,
Yeah,
eliminated.
I know.
No.
I erased it right away.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
now everyone who would like to give their first place vote to Scott, please raise their hand. Now, moving on to Ella, everyone who would like to give their first place vote to Ella, please raise your hand.
Typing too fast.
All right, and everyone who would like to give their first place vote to Brian, please raise their hand.
How's that
Do we
possible?
ever-
We didn't interview him.
He didn't withdraw, but he didn't interview.
Oh, I see. Got it. Okay. No.
All right, so now the candidates with the least amount of votes are eliminated.
Yes, so that's Kellen and Brian. But it doesn't change the pool. But yeah, you can have a second round now with 2 less people, I guess.
Okay,
I mean, because the least is 0.
Yeah, okay,
Or you could-
okay, when I wrote the description, the idea was
Yeah.
is that the people who receive the least number of votes get eliminated, and so the idea is that the people
Oh,
who, because
yeah.
it's ranked choice voting, so people reallocate their votes.
Right.
So
That's
Freeman,
true.
Aguilar, and Deschler,
You're right,
who
you're
all
right.
tied for failed, like we all lost. We all reallocate, like with, well, the idea is that you can organize everyone. There's like 3 people who are all wanting one thing. And then there's 1 person each who all wants something random. And
Yes.
so in a first past the post voting, all of our decisions are discarded in some sense.
Yes.
But the idea is that if with 3, it's weird, but if it was like 2, 2, and then 1 each, then we could end up, our second choice matters a lot. We might
Yeah.
both put our, and so the idea is that the 3 of us then move. We could like physically reorganize, like if you want to do this in physical space, 3 people are standing over there, and then the 3 of us who were like alone get to move to one of the bigger piles until that pile is big enough to win. And so,
So I guess just the 3
So-
of you can call your next vote.
yeah, the three of us who voted for who voted for the minority candidate because we tied for 1, then we reallocate our votes to somebody else. And so the way that this would work in an actual ranked choice voting list is we would then go and it'd be like, Jay, who's your second choice? Because I probably listed it ahead of time. It happens to be Henry. And so then it'd be like, Henry lost again. And so we keep going, right? And you just like roll it forward.
Yes.
So that's, yeah. But the,
They had this in Oakland and they did like 20 rounds of this.
Wow.
Yeah. And it took like 6 weeks for them to figure it out.
Oh, I'm sorry, actually, no, because Henry was already voted for, so I wouldn't even get to vote. I'm sorry. Of the people who are remaining, which I think it might literally be, it's just if he actually runs this algorithm, you can only vote for Ella at this point. Yeah.
You want me to run it in like the formal calculator?
Yeah, if you want to do it, like, I don't know, Ross made it sound maybe we should do the full formal thing because we talked about it, but.
If you give me like 2 minutes, I can set
Well,
it up.
I make a comment where he does it. Well, for all the reasons that have just been articulated, this is why I do not like ranked choice voting. And I didn't actually think that that's what we were doing. I thought that we were going through our top 3 that we had in terms of what we would rank.
Yeah.
So I do want to, especially because it looks like at this point, it sounds like mathematically, if we follow this, that there's the outcome is certain, but I don't want to overlook the other candidates that I had in my
Yeah, me
2 and
neither.
3. And I really just want to say a big thank you to Scott Ball. I really appreciated your passion. You, I think, have the experience that a lot of students that do undergrad at UCSB have, which is they really want to stay in this community, but life circumstances, whether that's financial or educational or just the path you on, prevent that from happening. But what's really unique about you is that you found a way back. And I just think that that's really special. And for you to be here, wanting to make a difference in that community and wanting to be involved, I think is a really excellent thing. You were my number 2 choice for this position. I think that the ideas that you brought to us about housing mediation are good ideas that we should consider, and I appreciate you bringing them to us. I know that it also just takes courage in an appointment process to come up and say, hey, I think that we should do this service a little bit differently. I'm really glad that you did that because it was a really good idea. And I really especially hope that you continue to stay involved, and I hope that we can find a role where you're able to contribute, because I really appreciate your perspective. I also really wanted to just share with Henry that I really appreciate your application and your perspective. I feel like I've known you online before I ever met you in person. For those who don't know, I think everyone knows at this point, but Henry is kind of the unofficial ambassador of Isla Vista to a lot of our alumni groups online. And I mean, he's just always someone that's there spreading love about our community. And I think that especially having seen in this role how unfortunately biased and sometimes even prejudiced people that don't live here can be about Isla Vista, what you are doing and what you do and what you embody is something that's incredibly important and is special, and we're all owed in our own way a little debt to you for doing that. And I really appreciate all the feedback that you brought us over the last months, and I hope that you will continue to do that, because I really value it and appreciate it. And I also want to say a big thank you to Christina. I have known you since we first met and see each other around the office when you were working for Home for Good. And you really can take a lot of the credit for building up one of our most important programs in the Isla Vista Beautiful program. And that is something, and your work with people experiencing homelessness is a perspective that is just so valuable. And I really appreciate that you got a little bit out of your comfort zone to come and ask us for this position, because I know that was hard. I think back to all the other times that you presented to our board, and I know that it's been challenging, but I want you to know that every time that you have, I think you've done an excellent job. And I really appreciate you speaking from the heart and speaking your truth. So I just wanted to share those things because I thought I'd get to do it beforehand, but
Glad you did.
I very much appreciate you did share. Any other directors want to jump in before we start the next round of our voting algorithm?
I feel like I already kind of listed my choices, so I'm good.
I'll say something. I did realize after I stopped talking that I only talked about my first choice candidate. My second choice would be Henry, because I see the passion that he has for this community, and he was my opponent in the last race, but he never stopped being the most welcoming and kind person ever. The first time I met Henry in person, we were at Woodstocks, and he recognized me, and I had a very lovely conversation with him and his partner. But I see how much you love Isla Vista, and we appreciate the things that you bring to our meetings so greatly. So like everybody else on this board, I hope that you continue to do so. And my third choice would have been Scott. I think that he's an extremely qualified candidate. I'm so glad. I agree with Spencer. There are some great ideas that he's brought to us, and I would love to see him continue to work with us as well.
Director Freeman.
For what it's worth, I mentioned my second choice was Henry, and one thing that I think is interesting is that, and it's almost sad that this is it can actually be seen as a reason why you wouldn't vote for somebody, but we aren't going to lose Henry. I am so confident that Henry is going to still be around these meetings. So, and my third choice was as many people here, Scott. So I think that one thing in particular that I thought was very interesting is that Scott's background in real estate and property law, in addition to environmental law and various other things, but focusing for a second on the real estate law and all of the negotiations that we continually are in with relation to the community center. And so the value of having that person on our team is interesting.
And I will also disclose that Henry was my second choice. I feel like the very first times I started coming to Isla Vista, I always saw him and he was always so friendly, and he always seems to be like an ambassador of Isla Vista, and just such a loving outpouring of happiness all the time. And then also I learned a lot about you from your resume, some of which I absolutely didn't understand at all. But the part about you being a naturalized citizen recently really moved me a lot. And I feel like immigration is such a huge issue in our country. And so I can only imagine, the struggle for it to take so long. And so to me, that's a part of diversity that I would really like to see represented on our board, as well as you seem to be a fluent speaker of Spanish, which I think is very important in our community. And then Scott was my third choice. I really liked the way his mind worked. I liked the way he organized his thoughts, and also was impressed with his background in real estate law, which I think is an area where we're hoping to make some inroads this year. So I hope that all of you who are not appointed to the board continue to stay in touch with us and work with us, because I think we have a lot of exciting challenges and you all have skills that could really help us to be successful.
Thank you for that. Yes, thank you everyone for sharing your further deliberation. Yeah, I'll come out and say my second choice when I was ranking in my head earlier today was Henry. And the reason I'll try and be short is that I admire so many of our long-term residents. There was a time that doesn't feel long ago for me in which I didn't know if I was going to be able to continue living in Isla Vista just from the challenges that Spencer just enumerated, but I knew that I wanted to. I knew that I wanted to be a part of this community for as long as I could, because of a certain special magic that you feel in the air, a certain thing that you notice when you're walking out of your front door and you feel connected with the sky and you feel that ocean breeze, and all these things that can be privileges, but can also be powers and responsibilities. Henry's always been a very responsible member of our community, and I learned more about his participation in being a responsible member through this interview. So thank you for sharing your information with us. My third choice was Christina. And I learned a lot about your involvement with the origin of the IVCSD, your involvement professionally with our most vulnerable community. And I saw that there's so much potential and skill inside of you. And I wanted to understand and learn more about that. I wanted to not lose those skills and those focuses. You discussed trust and the importance of trust in the community. And that's something that I value very much, and something that I don't think that I always accomplish as a director of the Isla Vista community, but it's something I strive for. And you mentioned trust, and I could see it in the work that you've done, what you've accomplished, and the people on this board that you've affected personally. So thank you very much for applying. Dr. Friedman.
So earlier, I attempted to summarize and make the process easy by saying the 3 people to vote for Ella. Of the people who did not vote for Ella, did anyone's second choice, was it Ella? You said yes. Ella was not your second choice, which means that actually we cannot short circuit the vote. And in fact, I have no clue what the current process is.
Well, so yes, I realized once your hand was raised that this was going to come up, but
My second use, Scott.
And who's your?
but I was like under the impression that we would vote and then re-vote rather than
Okay.
the numbers
Yeah,
all coalescing.
I'm causing confusion. By the way, I caused this whole confusing process in the first place. I'm happy where it ended up going in the sense that I feel like we had a lot more interesting discussion than I've ever seen in any of these board discussions ever. Despite the fact we've ended up in this ridiculously confusing place that I must.
Do you want me to run it in the calculator?
Yeah, I'd rather it go like that. I was very much under the impression that we would vote and then second votes in response.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion.
I will hear that motion, please.
While I appreciate the ranked choice voting system, no, I do appreciate the perspective director brings in this tool. To make things more simple, I would like to nominate Ella Scholes for the vacancy on the board of directors.
And then I'd like to second.
Oh, there was a fight for that.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. So all those in favor of Ella Scholes being appointed to the board, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. All those abstaining, abstain. Okay, so the motion passes, I think, 6-0.
Unanimous.
Wow.
Acclamation.
So now what happens? You go home,
Now
she gets
she's
sworn
like-
in? She gets sworn in now? You get to do the oath of office right now? Oh, this is so gosh darn
taking
cute.
We can do a ceremony next meeting, but we need to do this before that.
Yeah, okay.
Sure. So, you wanna, you,
Come over there.
Can we take a picture when we're done?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Your pen?
Oh, my pen. Oh, okay. It is a cool pen. It's got a little level on it. It's my favorite.
So don't throw it.
You okay, Jay? Are you all right? I'm loving it.
You should get
Don't
one.
ask me if I'm okay.
I'll ask my mom where she bought it.
So much.
I'm so sorry. And then it was when I proposed this, Marcus was like, this makes my life so much easier, and I made his life so much harder. And I
Yeah.
made him.
Oh.
It's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay because we have.
We just had different things we were envisioning, but they all involve the spreadsheet.
So I'll just do
Yes.
it this way where I'll read it and then she will repeat after me.
Why don't you be on camera? Is she on camera?
It's a
It's on
360.
every.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
You're never not on camera here.
Oh,
Okay.
If she starts talking, it work.
okay.
Yeah, it'll know. It'll know.
Oh,
So I, your name,
I, Ella Schultz,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I will bear the true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
And you can, I guess, see, we can do this
Okay.
after, yeah.
Okay,
No,
awesome.
you can join the board table.
You want me to sit at the table? Okay.
You're a board member.
Yeah, you want to vote on adjourning the meeting?
All right.
come on.
Well, we'll move into public comment now on the end of this motion.
Thank you. Just real quick, congratulations, Ella. It means so much to me to see the person who's replacing me be someone who's so passionate, so talented, and who is really going to grow into this position and make it their own. One thing that Director Craig mentioned during her comments that I forgot to consider was your experience on the campaign internship with Congressman Carvajal. And for those who don't know, what that looks like is going door to door in Isla Vista, knocking on doors, talking with our residents about the issues that matter to them, registering them to vote, making their voices heard. That was the first thing I did when I moved here with Congressmember Lois Capps at the time. And I can't think of a better way for you to get to know the community and to be ready to get to work on behalf of all of those people that you just met. So I'm really excited for you and congratulations to the district.
First of all, Ella, it's been an honor and a pleasure to sit alongside you through this process. And congratulations. It was a very well-earned appointment and you have my support.
Thank you.
And that goes for the rest of the board as well. You'll always have my support. You have my support now going forward. And like I said, a lot of us have talked after last night's process and we said we were going to make a commitment to be more involved, more engaged. So like Jay said, he's not going away. And but I also want to thank Christine as well for first of all, showing the courage that you showed last night to speak and put your voice out there. And that was very touching. I'm not gonna lie. And Ethan, congratulations to the board, the Goleta School District, and you made this possible for someone to step in and carry on what we're all trying to do is make a better community. And thank you for making a better community with your efforts that you did on the board. So I just want to thank each and every one of you, present, future, and past, going forward. And you have our commitment that we will be engaged and involved. And that's where I stand on this. Thank you all for this opportunity as well. It's been a pleasure, especially the deliberation. As a scientist, I gotta say, this is the most fun. I'm trying to run factorials and everything, and I'm probably thinking the way that Jay does. Just watching the whole process is just amazing. And I come in a good second, but behind a great first. And I appreciate that.
Right, any other comments? Any comments on Zoom?
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay. All right. So with that motion cleared and the challenging decision made, we will have our next regular meeting of the Board of Directors on February 14th, 2023 at 6 p.m. on Zoom and at the community room right here, 970 Embarcadero Del Mar in Isla Vista, California. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Seconded by Craig. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. And no abstention. This motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned.
All right, we got 7 again.
Oh my gosh, that was the cutest process.
Yeah.
So that meeting in Tasmania, by the way,
Yes.
was an appointment. So there's 2 board members and was it to appoint the president and the vice president.
And there's only 2 people
There's 2
there.
people who were there. They start threatening, that person who didn't show up, maybe we should make him president just because he didn't show up. That'll show him. But then the current president says, you know what? Okay, I appoint Bob, the other person, to be president, and I guess I'll be vice president. Then he looks at the member of the public and says, wait, what's your name? She says, Maria. You know, Maria, we're actually short some board members. Do you want to be on the board? I can add you to this motion right now. I can just say, and make Maria a board member. Maria then goes, no. I'm just here because I wanted to ask about the street sign.
That's crazy. That is so wild. Ella, congratulations. Very exciting.
It's nice to meet all of you that I haven't met already.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. Yeah.
I think what we was mentioned.